Welcome to BL Stories, where romance, drama, and unforgettable boys' love come to life. Love knows no limits, and the best stories aren't always straight. Subscribe now and join our growing BL-loving family. My head hit the headboard hard, and I winced, but I forced myself to hide the pain. Showing weakness wasn't an option. Not with him. Or maybe it was. After all, making him feel powerful was part of the job. I'm Michael Hutch. People call me Meat. And yes, I'm in a line of work most people avoid talking about. At this point, the label doesn't bother me. What once felt uncomfortable now feels like describing any other profession. Doctor, mechanic, worker. We all have bills. This just happens to be how I pay mine. Across from me was Mr. Beatham. I called him Mr. Bedlam in my mind because chaos seemed to follow him wherever he went. Today was no exception. He wasn't here because he wanted to be. Not really. He was someone fighting himself, trapped in a life built on denial. After nearly 2 decades of pretending to be someone else, the pressure had cracked him. And I was his escape, a mirror he hated looking into. I didn't feel anything romantic for him, just a strange sort of sympathy. Like you'd feel for a stray dog you didn't have the power to help. He treated me roughly, as if hurting me could drown out his own regrets. Every session was the same. He controlled everything, needed to. He needed to feel powerful. I let him. That's what he paid for. Eventually he paused, breathing hard, his energy spent. He looked both exhausted and frustrated. I asked him quietly, "Untie me." For a second he hesitated. Then, without a word, he loosened the knots. I rubbed my wrists and stood up carefully, making my way to the bathroom. I needed to wash up and catch my breath. I stared at myself in the mirror. There were marks, but nothing that wouldn't fade in a few days. Over time, I'd learned how to endure without breaking. Survival, in its own way, teaches you how to adapt. When I stepped back into the room, Mr. Bedlam was already dressed, tying his shoes. Probably heading home to his family, back to the life he told himself was real. I caught myself watching him longer than I should have. He must have noticed. "What?" he snapped, trying to sound tough. "Don't expect anything from me." I just blinked, tired more than anything. I wasn't the one living 2 lives. "Nothing," I said quietly. "Just remembered a joke." Without replying, he grabbed his coat and left. I cleaned up the room the way I always did, removing any sign I'd ever been there. Tossed the trash, straightened the bed. Habit. Routine. On my way out, the receptionist gave me that familiar look. I managed a small smile. In some strange way, I felt we understood each other. People doing what they had to do to get by. As I stepped into the sunlight, I told myself the same thing I always did. Tomorrow's another day. And I'll survive it too. I stepped out into the street, running a hand through my hair as the wind hit my face. My eyes watered from the sharp gusts, and I narrowed them just enough to see where I was going. The Windy City, no name could have fit this place better. It was still early. Normally, my work didn't really start until late afternoon. My nights were usually the busiest. Not chaotic exactly, but nights had long become my version of the 9 to 5. Suddenly, my phone rang, pulling me from my thoughts. I flinched slightly before answering with a tired smile. "Yes. You should try being a little more polite when you answer." Could have been a client. It was Emmett. His usual tone, half amused, half annoyed. "What is it, Emmett?" "2 more requests for tonight. They came in while you were working." "How was the last one?" I sighed. "Same as always. Angry. Detached. Called me names like it'd help him feel better about himself." "Did he hurt your feelings?" I could practically hear the smirk in Emmett's voice. I didn't have the energy to argue. And I was starving. "Just text me the details. I've got things to do." "Sure thing, steak." He hung up. I rolled my eyes. Last week I was veal. Emmett got way too much entertainment out of giving me new nicknames. He was the one who'd come up with meat in the first place, said it sounded both cryptic and suggestive. Since then, he'd cycled through every type of meat he could think of. Maybe, in his own strange way, that was friendship. After working together for over a year, we'd settled into something like that. Colleague Silly's. My phone buzzed twice. 2 messages. M. Smith, 30 Portage Park. S. Glynn, 25, Lakeview. Just basic info. Emmett always kept details minimal in texts, precaution, in case the phone ever got lost. I'd get the full details either through calls or once I got to the station. My stomach grumbled. I ducked into the nearest cafe, grabbed a bagel and coffee, and ate quickly. Once I felt human again, I hailed a cab and headed to the station. To be clear, the station wasn't anything fancy. It was just what we called the small setup in Dorian's apartment. We managed everything from there: phone calls, bookings, payments. We even had a basic website. Nothing flashy, but it worked. Some clients paid online. A small commission kept the site running, plus a bit set aside for emergencies. Prices were clear, based on services and who was requested. Dorian was technically the boss, but we rarely saw him anymore. He handled only the top-tier clients and left the rest of us to manage things ourselves. Different circles, different rules. When I walked in, Emmett barely glanced up. "Morning," he grunted. I heard some sounds from the next room. I glanced inside and immediately regretted it. Emmett was watching something on his laptop, clearly too relaxed about being caught. "Seriously?" I muttered. He just chuckled, unapologetic. Emmett was odd like that. He had his quirks. I didn't bother arguing. "I need my client details," I said flatly. "Just a sec." I ignored whatever he was doing and pulled up the admin page on my phone. First client, Malone Smith. Still waiting on a venue confirmation. Requested to meet at 9 p.m. He wanted a regular session. I booked the same hotel I just left, texted him the details, and moved on. Then my stomach dropped. Swash Glynn. My heart skipped. I stared at the name on the screen, unable to breathe for a moment. "Great," I whispered under my breath. Something told me this night wasn't going to be simple. City lights flashed past the cab window as I rode back to the hotel. The streets were strangely quiet for a Wednesday night. I sat in silence, replaying everything from the last hour in my head. What do you mean you can't do it? Just cancel. Tell him I'm sick or something. Book one of the new guys instead. Call him yourself. You're on station duty. It's your job. Emmett had glared at me but shifted into curiosity. Why? It's complicated. I just don't want to. He raised a brow. An ex of yours or something? I shook my head. Just cancel it, Emmett. Please. Are you sure it's the same Swash Glynn? Is Swash a common name? He laughed. You've handled worse. Remember Charles? I winced. Unfortunately, he had a point. I'd handled clients way worse than this. But Swash, this felt different and I couldn't explain why. I just didn't want to see him. I'm not getting into it. Which means I really want to know, Emmett teased. Maybe just respect my choice for once. But Emmett wasn't one for respecting boundaries. He stood up suddenly. Where are you going? Cancel Glynn first. I need air. I'm meeting Alex. I had to admit, I respected Alex. Being with someone like Emmett couldn't be easy. Not everyone could date someone working in our world. Alex could have had anyone. Tall, tanned, a gym body most people dreamed about, always smiling and effortlessly charming. But loyalty? That was his real defining feature. He genuinely loved Emmett. Maybe people were different around the ones who mattered to them. Hey, Earth to Porky. Emmett was snapping his fingers in front of my face, pulling me back from my thoughts. You still haven't called him to cancel. I glared at him. Do it yourself. He smirked in that annoying way of his. Alex is waiting. And just like that, he was gone. I sat there, fuming. Why was I even afraid of seeing Swash? It wasn't like he'd remember me. We hadn't been close. It was years ago. I stared at the screen. House call. Those words blinked at me like a challenge. I hesitated, then reached for the phone. I dialed his number. Frank. Just as his voice answered, I panicked and ended the call. My heart was racing. Maybe I just won't show up. But Dorian would kill me. The cab came to a stop in front of the hotel. I paid the driver and headed inside, checking my phone one more time to confirm the room number. Room 308. At the front desk, the same receptionist from earlier looked less than thrilled to see me. "You again?" "Room 308. He handed me the key, but held on to it for a moment longer. "I know what you're doing." I forced a smile. "You seem sharp." "Of course you do. I don't like your type using this hotel. We're not that kind of place." I sighed. "James," I read from his name tag, "people check into hotels for all sorts of reasons. Honeymoons, broken hearts, business trips, family drama. What people do behind those doors isn't your concern, unless it's illegal. Last I checked, making people feel less alone wasn't a crime." He hesitated. I knew I was pushing my luck. I pulled the key from his grip and winked. "Don't worry. I'm not planning to stay long." Inside the elevator, I leaned against the wall and closed my eyes, trying to steady my nerves. When I reached the room, I paused before knocking softly. He opened the door. Malone Smith. He looked younger than his profile suggested. His name didn't fit him at all. Soft blonde hair, flawless skin, light stubble, and tired, searching eyes. He looked lost. I hesitated, then spoke softly. "Hi." He stared for a long moment, his gaze distant. "Wow, you really do look like him." My heart tightened. "Like who?" He avoided my eyes. "My ex." That explained the sadness. I stood there awkwardly for a moment. Then, without thinking, I stepped forward and placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. He jumped slightly at the touch, startled. "Tonight," I said softly, "I'm whoever you need me to be." He stared at me in confusion, then something in him shifted. His expression softened. "Kiss me." I nodded. Our kiss started slow, gentle, like we were both scared to break something fragile. Then he kissed me back, harder, as if trying to forget whoever haunted him. For the first time that night, I didn't feel like a stranger. I felt like someone he missed. And I let him believe that, for tonight. I walked to the bed and sat down, feeling tense but trying not to show it. Malone watched me carefully, as if he wasn't sure whether to approach. There was a strange silence between us, something heavier than awkwardness. Then he spoke softly. "Are you okay?" I nodded, though my heart was somewhere else. My mind kept drifting to Swash Glynn. I forced myself to stay present as Malone sat beside me. He reached out hesitantly, his hand brushing mine before resting over it. His touch was gentle, like he wasn't sure if he was allowed to hold me. "You're shaking," he whispered. I hadn't even realized. "There's some lotion in my bag," I said quietly. "If you want." Malone smiled, his gaze softening. "Only if you're comfortable." I nodded, but truthfully, I wasn't. Not with Malone. Not with myself. Not tonight. He squeezed my hand gently. "I'm not here to hurt you." His words made something inside me ache. "You remind me of someone," he added softly. "Who?" "My ex." I looked away, understanding more than I wanted to admit. Malone continued, "I guess. I just missed how it felt. To have someone close." I swallowed hard. I knew that feeling too well. He squeezed my hand again. "Can we just lie down? No pressure." I hesitated, then nodded. We lay side by side on the bed, fully clothed, listening to the silence. His breathing calmed next to me, and little by little, I felt my body relax. Not from attraction, not from lust, but from the strange comfort of human closeness. I had no idea when I'd last let someone be this near without expecting anything else. He turned his head toward me. "Thank you." "For what?" "For letting me pretend. Just for tonight." I closed my eyes. His words hit harder than I expected. "Are you free Friday night?" he asked after a pause. I opened my eyes, startled. "I don't know. I might be working." He nodded slowly, like he understood. "If you're not, maybe we could meet again." I didn't know what to say. I wasn't used to clients asking to see me again, at least, not like this. Not without the usual reasons. "Are you sure you want to?" I finally asked, my voice smaller than intended. Malone smiled softly. "I wouldn't ask if I didn't." He reached down, took my phone from my pocket, and saved his number into it. Call me, he said simply. Then he stood, got dressed, and left. I stayed lying there, staring at the ceiling. My thoughts spun in circles. What was I doing? I wasn't supposed to care. This wasn't supposed to matter. You're not who he wants, I whispered to myself. I was just a replacement. A shadow of someone else. Nothing more. I dragged myself into the shower, letting the water wash over me, as if it could wash the confusion from my mind. I repeated it to myself like a mantra. You're a worker. You don't fall for clients. And yet, part of me wanted what Emmett had. Real connection. Someone who saw past the surface. But Malone didn't see me. He saw a ghost. By the time I dressed and made my way to the lobby, it was nearly midnight. The same receptionist from earlier was half asleep at the desk. I dropped the key loudly to wake him up, giving him a grin and a half-hearted wink before walking out into the cold night air. I shivered, regretting my thin hoodie. I bought a small bottle of scotch from the store across the street and took a long sip. I needed to be numb for what came next. Because Swash Glynn was waiting. I flagged down a cab and gave the driver the address. As we drove, the alcohol warmed me from the inside out, making my fingers tingle. I told myself over and over, it's just another client. Just another job. The driver glanced at me in the rearview mirror. Bad night. The worst, I muttered, taking another sip. The rest of the ride was silent. When we pulled up outside the condo building, I paid and stepped out, finishing the last of the scotch. I was buzzed but still steady. Swash's place was upscale. I hated how that made me feel, like I was about to walk into a life that was better without me. I rang the buzzer. No answer. Then, suddenly, the door clicked open. Maybe there was a camera. Maybe he'd been watching me the whole time. I forced myself inside, took the elevator, and found myself standing at his door. I raised my hand to ring the bell, but before I could, the door opened. Swash stood there. For a long, painful second, he just studied me. And then he smiled. Of course, he said softly. I swallowed hard. This is going to be a long night. The whiskey was hitting harder than I expected. I stood at Swash's door, trying to glare at him, but judging by the way he laughed, it probably looked more pathetic than intimidating. What do you want? I asked flatly. He grinned, shaking his head. Is that how you greet a paying customer? I stood frozen, my mind telling me to turn around and leave. But my feet didn't move. Maybe the alcohol dulled my instincts. He kept smiling, clearly amused by something I wasn't seeing. Then I followed his gaze downward and realized why. I looked down at my pants. The spilled scotch had left a stain that looked embarrassingly like, well, you can guess. My cheeks burned as I looked back at him. He laughed softly but kindly this time and stepped aside, motioning for me to enter. Against my better judgment, I did. His apartment surprised me. Simple yet elegant, every detail carefully placed. A red carnation in a stone vase, a tribal mask on the wall, abstract paintings that shifted colors as I moved. Tan walls, dark wooden floors, cream-colored furniture. It felt like a home, not a showroom. I exhaled without realizing I'd been holding my breath. Want some water? He asked. I nodded silently. Swash disappeared into the kitchen and returned with a glass of spring water. I drank it quickly, grateful as the cool liquid washed away some of the heat inside me. Thanks. He set the glass down and looked at me, this time more seriously. I stared back, unsure what he wanted. Finally, he sat down on the couch. We're not doing anything? I asked, confused. I was hoping we could just talk. Talk? I repeated, unable to hide my skepticism. He nodded. His expression now was soft. Almost vulnerable. You brought me all the way here just to talk? I snapped. Can't I just do my job and leave? I don't want to be here. I'm sorry. I frowned, confused. An apology? From Swash Glynn? He looked up, meeting my gaze. I'm really sorry, Michael. I felt like the air left the room. Now, after all this time? My voice was quieter than I intended. You've looked for me all these years, and this is what you've been waiting to say? I've been trying to find you for 4 years, he admitted quietly. You're not easy to track down. Then how did you? He looked away. I felt my patience snap. Either tell me what this is about or I'm leaving. He opened his mouth, then closed it again. I shook my head, disgusted with myself for even being here. Forget it. I'll refund your payment, minus travel. I turned toward the door, but he rushed up and grabbed my arm. Please, just listen. His voice cracked, and for the first time I saw it, the guilt, the regret. It wasn't an act. Michael, I need you to forgive me. I froze. Why do you care? My voice was shaking now, my emotions getting the better of me. I could have gone the rest of my life without thinking about you. You're a memory I've worked hard to bury. And now you drag it all back. I haven't forgiven myself for what I did to you, he whispered. And I don't think I can until you do. His words hit me harder than I wanted. I wanted to yell at him. But suddenly I felt sick. Literally. My stomach twisted, and I barely had time to push past him before I threw up into his kitchen sink. I felt weak. Empty. Swash's hand steadied me. His warmth was oddly comforting. He still had the build of the athlete I remembered, though a little softer now. He helped me to the couch and brought me a fresh glass of water. Have you been drinking? He asked softly. I shot him a tired glare. What's it to you? You're still underage. I closed my eyes, exhausted. Don't. He handed me a glass of Sprite instead of water this time. The sweetness helped settle my stomach. I felt a little better, though my body still trembled. I messed up, Swash said quietly beside me. I was young, selfish, and I didn't care who I hurt. I stayed silent. If I'd known what you were going through, maybe Maybe what? I interrupted bitterly. You'd have done the right thing because you felt guilty? He fell silent. I looked at him for a long moment. 6 years. We'd known each other 6 years ago, back in high school. He was the senior everyone admired. I was the quiet sophomore, younger than most in my class, trying to find myself. My brother had been the golden boy back then, star athlete, everyone's hero. Swash had been his friend, which was how we'd met in the first place. I rarely thought about those days anymore. It hurt too much. And now here he was, dragging me back. I stared down at my hands. Why now? I whispered. I don't know, he admitted. I just couldn't carry it anymore. And suddenly I realized, neither could I. So, what happened? To you, Swash asked quietly. Like you don't know already, I replied flatly. I don't. I only heard a little after graduation, but no one really told me the truth. I want to know. He was settled into the couch, his gaze steady. I hesitated. I didn't want to sleep here, no matter how comfortable it was, but exhaustion kept me still. Maybe telling the story would help me stay awake, or at least keep my mind focused. I took a slow, shaky breath. It started back in the locker room. I remembered it clearly, as if it had just happened yesterday. Swash was changing after gym class. He looked like the classic high school athlete, confident, strong, always surrounded by people. His auburn hair caught the light, his moss-green eyes seemed deeper up close, and his tan skin looked effortlessly perfect. Back then, the 14-year-old me, confused, unsure, and curious, made the mistake of letting my eyes linger too long. And he caught me staring. His voice had been sharp, angry. What are you looking at? I froze. My face burned with embarrassment. Then he stormed over, slammed his locker door next to my head, making me flinch. I could still hear the echo of the metal. He grabbed me roughly, pulling me forward by my hair, and dragged me towards the others. This kid was staring at me, he said loudly as a crowd gathered. I tried to deny it, but fear choked my words. Someone else took advantage of the moment. Rodney, my personal tormentor, stepped forward, sneering. He hit me hard across the face. When I stumbled, he punched me in the stomach. I remember the pain, the humiliation. I remember vomiting as others laughed or watched silently. I looked up through tears and saw Swash standing above me. He didn't stop them. He walked away. I forced the memory aside. My voice shook. After that, it got worse. Every hallway, every class. I became invisible and hated at the same time. By the next day, I couldn't take it anymore. So, I ran. I paused, wiping my eyes before the tears could fall. I was gone for 3 days. Hiding in bus stops, alleyways. Using what little money I had to buy food. I didn't know where I was going. I just didn't want to be anywhere near that place. Swash's expression was unreadable. Then one day, passing a TV shop, I saw myself on the news. My parents, they were begging for me to come home. That's when I realized maybe they hadn't given up on me after all. So I went back. I hesitated, saying the next part hurt more than remembering the rest. When I got home, the police were there. At first, I thought I was in trouble for running away. But they wouldn't let me inside. They said I had to give a statement. I didn't understand. I wasn't kidnapped. I wasn't hurt. I was just lost. I glanced up, my voice hollow. Then a woman from social services arrived. I didn't understand why she was there either. At first, I thought, maybe my parents didn't want me back. Maybe they found out why I ran and decided to send me away. I swallowed hard. I begged them to let me see my mom. I said I'd change. I told them I'd be what everyone wanted me to be. I just wanted to go home. I paused, trying to hold myself together. And that's when they told me. Swash's eyes searched mine, confused but concerned. They told me my parents and my brother were gone. I let the silence settle around us. They died in a car accident. Searching for me. Swash said nothing. He didn't need to. I looked down at my hands, my voice barely above a whisper. So now you know. Tears burned behind my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. I lost everything. I watched Swash closely. His face shifted from shock to sadness, then horror as the weight of my story sank in. Oh my God, I caused this, he whispered. No, you didn't. I did. His voice cracked. He looked pale, like he might be sick. He shut his eyes tightly as if trying to block out his own thoughts. I stared at him, confused. I had never looked at it that way. All these years, I blamed myself for running away. For my family going after me. For what happened to them. Now Swash was shouldering that blame like it was his punishment. I didn't want to talk about it anymore. Enough damage had been done tonight. I glanced at the wall clock. 1:33 a.m. I'd been here over an hour, and all I'd managed was to cry, get sick, and relive the worst moments of my life. I looked back at Swash. He was crying now, really crying. I'm sorry, Michael. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to. His voice broke completely. For a moment, I didn't know what to feel. I'd spent so long carrying guilt that seeing someone else carry it felt strange. I sighed, my body heavy with exhaustion. But then, right on cue, my stomach growled loudly. Swash heard it. He wiped at his face and stood up awkwardly. I'll make you a sandwich. I just nodded slightly, too drained to say anything more. I leaned back on the couch, my eyelids growing heavy against my will. I fell asleep. I woke up to sunlight on my face. Disoriented, I blinked against the brightness. The walls around me were painted white, with a band of orange running along the top and bottom edges. The floor beneath my feet was dark wood, probably mahogany, though I didn't care. My mouth felt dry, and my body ached from sleeping in clothes. I sat up under a soft duvet. The clock on the nightstand read 7:14 a.m. I tossed the covers aside and swung my legs down, spotting my shoes neatly placed beside the bed. Slipping them on, I stood unsteadily and walked into a much brighter living room. Then I remembered the painting. Swash's apartment. I headed straight for the door. I wanted out. But taped to the door was a note. Out for my morning run. Help yourself to anything in the fridge. I'll bring back breakfast. I tried the door. But I sighed, half annoyed, half resigned, and wandered toward the kitchen. Strangely, I wasn't as hungry as I'd been last night. Maybe I was just too emotionally tired. I found a jug of milk and drank straight from it without thinking, something my mother used to scold me for. I paused at that memory, my chest tightening. She wasn't here to remind me anymore. Shaking the thought away, I rummaged through the fridge and found a tub of yogurt. Spoon in hand, I walked through the apartment, curious now. Photos lined the living room wall. College events, graduation, a sports team. I paused on one image. Swash standing proudly next to an older man holding a jersey. The man looked oddly familiar, but I couldn't place him. I moved on. 3 rooms. One was Swash's bedroom, lived in, but tidy. The second was where I'd just woken up. The third was mostly empty, just a bare bed and a closet. And then I noticed something on the floor, a small shoe. A child's shoe. I picked it up, puzzled. Did Swash have a kid? I dropped it quickly when I heard the front door unlock. Swash appeared in the hallway, carrying a plastic bag. He looked sweaty from his run, hair damp and sticking to his forehead. When he saw me holding the shoe, he smiled gently. "I see you found Bradley's shoe." I said nothing. So, he had a child. Bradley? I didn't want to ask. I didn't want to get involved. Last night's memories felt blurry, but the weight of them lingered. I just wanted to leave. I think I should go. Swash's face fell. "Oh, you've got work?" I looked down awkwardly. He followed my gaze, then nodded, misunderstanding. I let him believe it. I didn't want to explain that work wasn't exactly a day job. "I was hoping you'd stay. You seemed so weak last night. Let me at least make you breakfast. Please." I hesitated. My stomach answered for me. "I've got an hour," I said carefully. That wasn't exactly a lie. I sat at the kitchen table and watched him work. He moved easily in the space, chopping spring onions, peppers, and something else I couldn't see. He cracked eggs into the pan and stirred the mixture like he'd done it 100 times. There was something calming about watching him. Focused, competent, quiet. He glanced back at me and smiled softly. "Hungry?" I nodded. Soon he served a plate, spicy grilled meat, seasoned eggs, and a fresh salad. I took a bite. I couldn't stop the small, surprised sound that left me. "This is really good." Swash chuckled quietly. "I'm glad." And for a few minutes, neither of us said anything. We just ate. "How are you not married?" I asked, half joking, trying to break the heavy silence. Swash chuckled softly, glancing at me before looking away. "Haven't found the right guy yet?" I froze. I dropped my fork and just stared at him. "Wait, what?" He caught my expression and clarified, his voice steady but quiet. "Yeah, you heard me right. I'm gay too." I sat there in shock, my thoughts spinning. This had to be a joke. The same guy who once humiliated me, who let others hurt me for being different, was gay? It didn't make sense. Then another question slipped out before I could stop it. "So, who's Bradley?" Swash smiled faintly, almost embarrassed. "My son. Believe it or not, I dated Cheryl after graduation. We weren't exactly in love, but things happened. I thought maybe if I just lived the life everyone expected, things would fix themselves." "But, you said you're—" I spent most of high school trying to ignore what I felt. I kept thinking it was just a phase. So I overcompensated. The relationships, the tough guy act, it was all a mask. I thought if I acted like someone who hated people like me, no one would ever suspect. I swallowed hard. "So, when you hurt me?" He nodded, voice heavy. "I was scared. And ashamed. And I took it out on you." Suddenly, everything made awful, painful sense. I looked down, poking at the last few bites of food on my plate. Across from me, Swash had stopped eating entirely, guilt written across his face. "I'm just sorry," he whispered. "For everything. Especially for what happened to your family. I know I can't fix it." I didn't answer. Let him feel it, I thought. Maybe he needed to carry some of that guilt. Whether he was sorry or not, nothing would change what happened. I finished eating in silence, took my plate to the sink, and washed it slowly. When I turned around, he was watching me, still sitting motionless at the table. "I'm going to leave now." "Okay." I walked toward the door, but suddenly, Swash stood and reached out, gently pulling me into a hug. I stood stiff, arms at my sides. His warmth and steady heartbeat were comforting. Too comforting. I wanted to melt into it, but I didn't. Not yet. Maybe not ever. He pulled back and looked into my eyes. His voice broke a little. "I really am sorry, Michael. I hope, someday, you can forgive me." "Yeah, well, whatever." I regretted the words as soon as they left my mouth. I hadn't meant them to hurt, but they did. I saw it in his eyes. And I let him hurt. I stepped away before I could change my mind and walked to the door. I left without saying goodbye. Outside, I leaned against the hallway wall and took a shaky breath. I wasn't going to cry. I refused to. But I wasn't okay either. He could have ignored me forever, but he didn't. He'd reached out. And now, my chest ached with the confusion of it all. As I stepped into the elevator and pressed the button, I saw him burst through his door. "Hey!" he called out. I ignored him. I reached the ground floor and stepped out, heading quickly toward the main road, hoping to find a taxi. After a minute, I heard footsteps behind me. I turned. Swash jogged up, holding something. "My phone," I muttered. He held it out to me, slightly breathless. "You left this." Someone named Malone called. I snatched the phone back, tense. "Did you answer it?" My voice came out sharper than I intended. He looked startled. "Yeah, but just to take a message." He said to call him back. I let out a shaky sigh. At least that was all. The morning breeze picked up, pressing Swash's thin shirt against his torso. His muscles were still well-defined after all these years. In the sunlight, with his slightly stubbled jaw and serious eyes, he looked handsome. I realized too late that I was staring. He caught me. He smirked, just slightly. "Are you checking me out? You do remember how all this started, right?" Instantly, my expression darkened. His smirk vanished. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean that." "Taxi!" I called out suddenly, cutting him off. A cab pulled up. I climbed inside quickly. "Boys Town," I said to the driver. As we sped off, I heard Swash's frustrated voice behind me, just before the cab door closed. "Michael!" But I didn't look back. As the taxi rolled toward Boys Town, I leaned back and sighed, feeling both physically and emotionally drained. The morning had not gone how I expected. Swash had somehow managed to turn one of the most difficult conversations of my life into a string of emotions I couldn't even name, making me cry, laugh, and even feel safe. All without crossing any lines. I shook my head and let out a small, dry chuckle. The man was full of surprises. Traffic was heavy, which meant my fare was climbing fast. Eventually, the cab dropped me off at Dorian's apartment, where Jason was holding down the front desk. Emmett was probably at his other job by now, working with the butcher, hence the endless meat-related nicknames he loves to throw at me. "Hey, anything for me?" I asked as I walked in. Jason shook his head, then paused. "Oh wait, something came in. Smith called again, wants you to get back to him. Sounds personal, though. You been keeping busy?" I sighed. "Not really. Maybe today's the day I finally hit the job market. I could use the extra cash." Jason raised an eyebrow. "Or you could do what Dorian did. Upgrade yourself, find the right clientele, and live like royalty." I smirked at that. Dorian really was something else. Smart, charming, and stunningly good-looking, thanks to his part Moroccan heritage. He'd built this place from the ground up, creating a business that kept us all above water. And now, he was off in the Maldives with his millionaire boyfriend, still running everything from afar. Must be nice. "Are you comfortable in that chair?" I asked, noticing how awkwardly Jason was hunched over. Jason glanced at himself and laughed. "Always." He was a big guy. Used to play linebacker in high school. People usually assumed he was the rough type, but Jason had a kind heart under all that muscle. He did his best to balance this gig with his other life, working accounting jobs on the side. Probably why he always seemed tired. "So, what's the deal with this Malone guy? You thinking about dating now?" "We met yesterday. Apparently, I remind him of his ex." Jason winced. "That's awkward." "Yeah. Anyway, I'm heading out. Let me know if anything comes up." I headed home to my small studio apartment. It wasn't much, but it was mine, and honestly, I liked it that way. After showering and changing clothes, I checked my phone. Malone had left 2 new messages, both asking me to call him back. I hesitated, then hit call. He answered almost immediately. "Hey, I was getting worried about you," Malone's warm voice said. "I was hoping to take you out tonight." I was actually calling about that. You're busy? I can reschedule. I hesitated. He sounded sincere. And persistent. I knew he was a good guy. But part of me couldn't shake the feeling that I was just a stand-in for his ex. Malone. I know you're trying to replace Jeff. But I'm not him. There was a pause. Then, gently, I know that. I want to get to know you. Just you. That shut me up. His tone, his words, he meant it. Could tell. He chuckled softly when I didn't respond right away. So, when can I pick you up? I swallowed. I'll be free after 7. Perfect. Where should I meet you? I nearly gave him my apartment address, but stopped myself. There's a cafe down the street. Pick me up there. Neutral ground. Boys. Got it. See you tonight. After hanging up, I grabbed my shoes and my resume portfolio, ready for a long day of job hunting. It was a waste of time. Sure, I got a few offers. But they were all minimum wage jobs with long hours. I couldn't afford to work myself to exhaustion, not when my other jobs still paid better and left me with energy to live. By 6 p.m., I dragged myself home, exhausted and hungry. I cleaned up, brushed my teeth, and tried to fix my hair. After half an hour of frustration and failed styles, Malone texted that he was on his way. I sighed, messed up my hair deliberately, and looked in the mirror. Perfect. At the cafe, Malone pulled up in a sleek Jaguar. A bit flashy for his style, but impressive. I climbed in and he leaned over, giving me a quick, gentle kiss. I managed a small smile in return. So, where are we going? I asked. You'll see. Turns out he'd made reservations at a high-end Thai restaurant. I kept insisting he didn't need to go all out, but he just smiled and said, "It's my treat." Still, a part of me couldn't help worrying. In my world, expensive dinners usually came with expectations I wasn't sure I wanted to meet. But as Malone kept talking, laughing, and genuinely trying to get to know me, not who I used to be or who he thought I was, I felt something inside me begin to soften. Maybe, just maybe, this night wouldn't be like all the others. Dinner itself was delicious, even if the dishes were unfamiliar to me. I let Malone order for both of us, trusting his taste more than my own guesses. He chose a lobster dish, and to my surprise, it tasted much better than it looked. Our conversation stayed light at first. Hometowns, high schools, small memories. I was careful with my words, keeping certain details to myself. But soon, the conversation drifted deeper. "Look, Malone," I said quietly, setting down my fork. "You're a great guy, and tonight's been wonderful." His smile faded, waiting for the bad news. I hesitated, unsure how to soften the truth. "I just wonder if you're really okay with this." With me, I mean, my life isn't simple, and I'm not exactly someone who can offer what most people expect in a relationship. He watched me closely. "Why would you think that?" "I don't want to be someone's substitute," I admitted, thinking about his past. "Especially not after what you've been through." Malone fell silent, then spoke gently. "Jeff didn't leave me. He passed away. It's been over a year now." I froze. "Oh, I'm sorry." "It's all right," he said softly. "But thank you for being honest with me." I wasn't sure what to say after that. But Malone leaned forward, his expression gentle yet determined. "I'm not looking for another Jeff. I'm here because I want to get to know you." I stared at him, unsure how to respond. His smile grew warmer as he sensed my hesitation softening. "So, when should I pick you up again?" he asked, voice casual but hopeful. I nodded faintly, unable to stop the smile forming on my face. Later, as he drove me home, the silence between us felt strangely comfortable. Malone glanced at me every now and then, as if checking to see if I was still there, not physically, but emotionally. When he pulled over near my place, I hesitated, unsure what would happen next. He reached over, brushing my hand gently. "I had a great time tonight." "Me too." There was a pause where words didn't seem necessary. But then, as if he couldn't help himself, he leaned forward and placed a soft, lingering kiss on my cheek. "Good night, Michael." I swallowed hard. "Good night." I stepped out of the car, my heart heavier than I expected. Not in sadness, but something else. Something more complicated. As I watched his car disappear into the night, I couldn't help but admit something to myself. I was starting to care. And that scared me more than anything. Thanks for listening to today's BL story. If it made your heart skip a beat, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Only here on BL Stories, where love knows no limits.